She sold her wedding dress to feed her son until the billionaire CEO saw the news. "I have a son," Elijah Grant whispered, his coffee cup slipping from his fingers and shattering on the marble floor of his penthouse office. The photo on his screen showed a woman he hadn't seen in 10 years, standing beside a frail boy with unmistakable amber eyes, his eyes. The headline burned into his vision. "Single mother sells wedding dress to save her son's life." How many nights had he spent in this glass tower, 60 floors above the city that never sleeps, believing he had everything? The Forbes profile last month called him the billionaire with the Midas touch. But staring at the boy's face, a face that carried his DNA, Elijah suddenly understood what true poverty felt like. It's midnight in Manhattan. The city sleeps, but billionaire CEO Elijah Grant doesn't. His penthouse office overlooks a skyline he helped build, 60 floors above the streets where he once struggled to survive. The blue light of his computer screen illuminates his exhausted face as he scrolls through headlines. "Single mother sells wedding dress to save her son's life." His finger freezes over the trackpad. The headline shouldn't matter. It's just another human interest story in a city of 8 million stories. But something pulls him to click. The photo loads. A woman stands outside a small bridal boutique, her arm around a frail boy in a hospital beanie. Her smile is brave, but her eyes tell a different story. Elijah's coffee cup slips from his hand, shattering on the marble floor. "Vivian," he whispers. 10 years dissolve in an instant. Vivian Hale, the woman whose heart he broke when his startup received its first major investment. The woman he promised to marry before ambition rewrote his priorities. But it's the boy beside her that stops his breath. 10 years old, according to the article. Thin from illness, but with unmistakable amber eyes. Elijah's eyes. Oliver Hale, 10, has been battling an aggressive form of leukemia for the past year, the article reads. His mother, Vivian Hale, owner of Forever After Bridal Boutique in Brooklyn, has sold her personal wedding dress collection, including the gown she once planned to wear at her own wedding, to fund an experimental treatment not covered by insurance. Elijah pushes back from his desk, the room suddenly spinning around him. The empire he built, the wealth he accumulated, the power he wielded, all of it meaningless in the face of this revelation. "I have a son," he whispers to the empty office. "I have a son who's dying." For 10 years, Elijah Grant built an empire. 40-story buildings bear his name. His technology company employs thousands. Forbes called him the billionaire with the Midas touch. But tonight, surrounded by the trappings of success, he feels like the poorest man in New York. His assistant's voice comes through the intercom. "Mr. Grant, your 6 a.m. flight to Tokyo is confirmed. The board is expecting your presentation on the Asian expansion." Elijah stares at the photo of the boy with his eyes. "Cancel it," he says. "Cancel everything." "Sir, the merger depends on—" "I said, cancel everything." His voice cracks with an emotion he hasn't allowed himself to feel in a decade. "Clear my schedule indefinitely." He grabs his coat and heads for the elevator, the article still open on his screen. The boy Oliver smiles weakly at the camera, unaware that his father has just seen his face for the first time. As the elevator descends 60 floors, Elijah's mind races through calculations no algorithm could process. 10 years of birthdays, first steps, first words, first day of school. A decade of moments he discarded for quarterly earnings and market share. The night doorman looks up in surprise. Elijah barely hears him. "Where can I find a florist open at this hour?" "At midnight, sir? I don't think—" "Never mind." He steps into the cold December air, his breath forming clouds in the darkness. His driver jumps to attention beside the waiting Bentley. "Where to, Mr. Grant?" Elijah pauses, the weight of 10 years pressing on his chest. "Brooklyn. Forever After Bridal Boutique. Think about the last time you stood at a crossroads, where one path leads to everything you've worked for, and the other leads to everything that matters. That moment when you realize success and happiness aren't the same thing. Before we go further, stop and think. If success cost you your family, would it still be worth it? Like this video if you've ever realized money can't buy time. Comment, never again, if you'd never trade love for ambition. Share this story with someone who needs that reminder. And if you're watching and haven't subscribed yet, ask yourself why. Don't just watch stories about redemption. To be part of one. Subscribe now to Mr. Sterling's Secrets of Love. The Brooklyn streets are quiet as Elijah's car pulls up to the small storefront. Forever After Bridal Boutique reads the elegant sign, though the windows are dark and a small by appointment only sign hangs on the door. Even in the dim streetlight, he can see the emptiness inside. Where racks of wedding dresses once stood, only a few scattered gowns remain. "Wait here," he tells his driver, stepping out into the cold. He cups his hands against the glass, peering into the darkened shop. A memory surfaces Vivian sketching wedding dress designs in their tiny apartment, dreaming of opening her own boutique someday. "When we're married," she'd said, "I'll design the most beautiful dress anyone has ever seen." He never saw that dress, never stood at an altar watching her walk toward him in it. And now, according to the article, she'd sold it to save their son. A light flickers on in the back of the shop. Someone is still there, working late. Elijah knocks on the door, his heart pounding against his ribs. A young woman appears, her expression wary, as she approaches the door without opening it. "We're closed," she calls through the glass. "By appointment only." "I need to speak with Vivian Hale," Elijah says. "Please, it's important." The woman's eyes narrow with recognition. "You're Elijah Grant." It's not a question. His face appears regularly in business magazines and tech blogs. "Yes. Is Vivian here?" The woman hesitates, then shakes her head. "She's at the hospital with Oliver, Street Michael's children's ward. She's been there since yesterday." Elijah's stomach tightens. Is he okay?" "Define okay," the woman says, her tone cooling. "He's fighting for his life, while his mother sells everything she owns to pay for treatments. So no, Mr. Grant, I wouldn't say he's okay." The accusation in her voice is clear. She knows who he is. Not just the billionaire, but the man who left. "Thank you," he says quietly. "I'll find her there." As he turns to go, the woman calls after him. "Mr. Grant?" He looks back. "If you're going to disappear again, don't bother showing up at all. That family has been through enough." Her words follow him like a shadow as he returns to the car. "Street Michael's hospital," he tells his driver. "As fast as you can." The hospital corridors are quiet at this late hour. Elijah follows signs to the pediatric oncology ward, his footsteps echoing on the polished floors. A nurse at the station looks up as he approaches. "I'm looking for Oliver Hale's room," he says. "Are you family?" she asks, her expression professional but guarded. The question hits him like a physical blow. Is he family? Biologically, yes. In every way that matters? No. "I'm his father," he says, the words strange on his tongue. The nurse's expression shifts subtly. "Room 412. But visiting hours are over, and he's sleeping. His mother is with him." "Thank you. I just need to speak with his mother." The walk to room 412 feels longer than any boardroom approach. Through the small window in the door, he can see a hospital bed where a small figure lies sleeping, connected to machines that beep softly in the dim light. Beside the bed sits Vivian, her head resting on her arm as she dozes in the uncomfortable chair. Even in sleep, exhaustion is etched on her face. Her once long blonde hair is now cut to her shoulders, and the carefree girl he knew has been replaced by a woman who has carried the world alone for too long. Elijah stands frozen, unable to knock, unable to walk away. What right does he have to disrupt the life she's built without him? What comfort can he possibly offer now after 10 years of absence? As if sensing his presence, Vivian stirs. She lifts her head, rubbing her neck, and glances toward the door. Their eyes meet through the glass. For a moment she doesn't move, as if she's seeing a ghost. Then her expression hardens. She rises from her chair, careful not to disturb the sleeping boy, and moves to the door. She steps into the hallway, pulling the door closed behind her. "What are you doing here?" Her voice is low but sharp, like a blade wrapped in velvet. Up close, the years between them collapse and expand simultaneously. She's still beautiful, but it's a beauty tempered by struggle and strength. I saw the article, Elijah says, his practiced eloquence deserting him. About Oliver. About the shop. And you what? Felt guilty? Decided to ease your conscience with a charitable appearance? Her arms cross over her chest, a physical barrier between them. Vivian, I didn't know. The words sound hollow even to his own ears. If I had known about him, you would have what? She interrupts. Stayed? Sent bigger checks? Don't pretend this would have changed anything, Elijah. You made your choice very clear 10 years ago. A nurse passes by, glancing curiously at them. Vivian lowers her voice. You need to leave. Oliver is finally sleeping, and I won't have you disrupting what little peace he has. Is he? Elijah swallows hard. How bad is it? Something flickers in Vivian's eyes, a mother's pain so deep it transcends her anger. He needs a bone marrow transplant. We've been on the registry for months, but there hasn't been a match. Her voice catches. The experimental treatment is buying time, but without a transplant. She doesn't finish the sentence. She doesn't need to. Let me help, Elijah says. Please. I can pay for any treatment. Bring in specialists from anywhere in the world. We don't need your money. Vivian says, though the shadows under her eyes tell a different story. The treatment is already underway. What Oliver needed was a father, but that ship sailed a decade ago. I want to be tested, Elijah says. As a donor, biological relatives have the highest chance of matching, don't they? Vivian stares at him, clearly caught off guard by the offer. Before she can respond, the door to Oliver's room opens slightly. A small voice calls out, Mom? Who are you talking to? Vivian's expression shifts instantly, softening as she turns to her son. Just a visitor, sweetheart. Go back to sleep. But Oliver is already peering around the door, his curious gaze landing on Elijah. The boy is thin, his complexion pale, but his amber eyes, Elijah's eyes, are bright with intelligence. Are you a doctor? Oliver asks. Elijah can't speak. The boy before him is a miracle he had no part in creating, yet recognizes as his own flesh and blood. No, honey, Vivian says. This is an old friend. Mr. Grant was just leaving. Oliver studies Elijah with unnerving intensity. You look familiar. Oliver, you should be resting, Vivian says gently, moving to guide him back to bed. I've seen you before, Oliver insists, still staring at Elijah. On Mom's old laptop, in the photos she keeps in the box under her bed. Vivian's cheeks flush. Oliver, please. You're Elijah Grant, the boy continues. You founded Grant Tech when you were 25. Your net worth is estimated at $4.8 billion. He pauses, then adds quietly, and you're my father. The corridor falls silent except for the distant beeping of machines. Vivian looks stricken, her hand protectively on Oliver's shoulder. How did you? She begins. I Googled you, Oliver says to Elijah, his directness startling. After I found the old pictures, we have the same eyes and the same chin. His small hand touches the cleft in his chin, mirroring Elijah's own feature. Elijah kneels slowly, bringing himself to eye level with his son. Yes, he says simply. I am. Oliver's next question cuts straight to the heart. Why didn't you want me? Oliver, Vivian exclaims. It's okay, Elijah says, never breaking eye contact with the boy. It's a fair question. He takes a deep breath. The truth is, I didn't know about you, Oliver. That's not an excuse. It's just the truth. If I had known, would it have made a difference? Oliver asks, echoing his mother's earlier question with eerie precision. Elijah doesn't flinch from the child's penetrating gaze. I'd like to think so, but I was young and scared and selfish back then. I made choices I can't undo. He pauses. What I can tell you is that I'm here now, and I want to help in any way I can. Oliver considers this with a maturity that breaks Elijah's heart. What 10-year-old should have to weigh the sincerity of a father's belated appearance? Mom says I need a bone marrow donor, Oliver says finally. Someone whose blood matches mine. Could yours match? I don't know, Elijah answers honestly. But I want to find out. Oliver looks up at his mother, whose eyes shine with unshed tears. Mom, can he try? Vivian's resolve visibly wavers as she looks between her son and the man she once loved. It's not that simple, Oliver. Actually, it is. Oliver counters with the logic of childhood. Either his blood matches or it doesn't. The rest is grown-up stuff. A small smile touches Vivian's lips despite herself. When did you get so wise? Cancer, Oliver says with a shrug. It makes you think about stuff. The simple statement lands like a blow. This child, his child, has been forced to contemplate mortality while other kids his age worry about video games and homework. I'll speak with Dr. Winters in the morning, Vivian concedes. But Oliver, I don't want you getting your hopes up. Even parents aren't always matches. I understand, Oliver says, though hope already brightens his tired eyes. He turns back to Elijah. Do you know how to play chess? The question, so ordinary amid the extraordinary circumstances, catches Elijah off guard. Yes, I do. Good. Oliver nods decisively. Bring a chess set next time you visit. Nobody here plays except the janitor, and he always lets me win. With that, he turns and shuffles back into his room, leaving the adults in stunned silence. He's remarkable, Elijah says, when the door closes. He is, Vivian agrees, her defenses momentarily lowered. And he's been through more in 10 years than most people face in a lifetime. Vivian, I know I have no right to ask anything of you. But please, let me be tested. Let me try to help him. She studies him, searching for ulterior motives or fleeting guilt that will disappear once assuaged. And then what? If you're not a match, you disappear again? If you are a match, you play hero and then return to your empire? Oliver has had enough disappointment. I'm not going anywhere, Elijah promises. Match or no match, I want to be part of his life in whatever capacity you'll allow. Vivian's laugh is hollow. You say that now, standing in a hospital corridor with mortality, staring you in the face. But what happens when the crisis passes? When being a father means school plays and math homework instead of dramatic rescues? I don't know, Elijah admits. I've never been a father before. I'll make mistakes. But I want to try, Vivian. I want to know my son. The sincerity in his voice gives her pause. Before she can respond, a nurse approaches. Miss Hale? Oliver's asking for his medication. Says his head is hurting again. I'll be right there, Vivian says, then turns back to Elijah. Come back tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. Dr. Winters does his rounds then. We can discuss the testing. Relief washes over him. I'm not doing it for you, she says, her voice softening slightly. I'm doing it for Oliver. He deserves every chance. As she turns to go, Elijah calls after her. Vivian? She pauses, looking back. I'm sorry. For everything. Her eyes meet his, a decade of pain and resilience reflected in them. Sorry doesn't make up for 10 years, Elijah. I know, he says quietly, but it's a start. The words hang in the air between them, a fragile bridge across a chasm of lost time. As Vivian disappears into Oliver's room, Elijah remains rooted in place, the weight of his choices pressing down on him. 10 years ago, he'd walked away from love for ambition. Now he stands in a sterile hospital corridor, understanding for the first time the true cost of that decision. Doubt had become Vivian's constant companion over the years, a wall she'd built brick by brick to protect herself and Oliver from disappointment. Have you ever looked back at a choice you made and realized it altered everything that came after? That moment when you see the ripple effects of your decisions spreading through years, through lives? How many of us chase dreams, only to realize the people we were chasing them for are gone? Like if you've ever regretted waiting too long, comment, "Time doesn't wait." Share this with someone you miss. And who's watching right now, but still hasn't subscribed. Don't wait for regret to teach you loyalty. Subscribe now and grow with us through stories that heal and remind you what matters most. Elijah returns to his hotel suite, sleep impossible as his mind races with the day's revelations. He spends the night researching leukemia, bone marrow transplants, and success rates. By morning, his eyes are red-rimmed, but his purpose is clear. At precisely 9 a.m., he walks into St. Michael's Hospital, carrying a leather chess set and a small stuffed robot, a gift chosen after discovering Oliver's interest in robotics from the article. Dr. Winters, a tall man with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes, listens carefully as Elijah explains who he is and why he's there. Biological parents have approximately a 50% chance of being a half-match, the doctor explains. It's not ideal, but with today's treatments, a half-match can work if we don't find a perfect one. And if I'm a full match? Elijah asks. Then Oliver's chances improve significantly. Vivian stands silently beside them. Her arms crossed, her expression guarded. She's changed into fresh clothes, simple jeans, and a sweater. But exhaustion still shadows her face. How soon can we know? Elijah asks. We can take blood samples today. Results typically take about a week. A week? Elijah frowns. Can it be expedited? Dr. Winters smiles patiently. Mr. Grant, I understand you're used to things happening at your command, but some processes can't be rushed. Oliver's condition is stable for now. The week will pass quickly. Humbled, Elijah nods. Of course, I'm ready whenever you are. As Dr. Winters leads them toward the lab, Vivian finally speaks. Oliver's been asking for you. He's having a good day today. The simple statement feels like an olive branch. The chess set, Elijah says, holding up the leather case. And I brought him something else. I hope that's okay. Vivian's expression softens slightly. He'll like that. Oliver is sitting up in bed when they enter, a tablet in his hands. His face brightens when he sees Elijah. You came back, he says, as if he'd been uncertain. I promised I would. Elijah replies, setting the chess set on the bedside table. And I brought you something. He offers the stuffed robot. Oliver examines it with a critical eye. Cool. It looks like the ones they're developing at MIT for pediatric hospitals. He looks up at Elijah. Did you know they're programming robots to help kids like me feel less scared during procedures? Elijah blinks, surprised by the boy's knowledge. I didn't know that. Oliver reads everything he can get his hands on, Vivian explains, a note of pride in her voice. The nurses call him the professor. I want to design medical robots someday, Oliver says, matter-of-factly. Ones that can detect cancer cells before they spread. He pauses, then adds, if I get better. When? Vivian corrects gently. When you get better. Oliver shrugs. His expression too, knowing for a child his age. Dr. Winters is going to test you today? He asks Elijah. Yes. They're taking blood samples to see if I'm a match. The odds aren't great, Oliver says clinically. Even with biological parents, it's basically a coin flip. Oliver, Vivian chides softly. Let's focus on the positive. I'm just being realistic, Mom. He turns back to Elijah. But I hope you match. That would be convenient. The clinical detachment in the boy's voice breaks Elijah's heart. This child has been forced to become an expert in his own mortality, to view his survival in terms of statistics and probabilities. How about that chess game? Elijah suggests, opening the leather case to reveal hand-carved pieces. Fair warning, I was chess champion at MIT. Oliver's eyes light up with the first genuine childlike excitement Elijah has seen. Really? I've been teaching myself from YouTube videos. They set up the board between them. And for the next hour, the hospital room transforms. Oliver is no longer a sick child, and Elijah is no longer a billionaire CEO or an absent father. They're just two people engaged in a battle of wits, each move revealing something new about the other. Oliver plays with surprising skill, his strategies creative, if sometimes flawed. Elijah finds himself genuinely challenged, not because the boy is a prodigy, but because his approach is unpredictable, untrained by conventional wisdom. From her chair by the window, Vivian watches them, her expression unreadable. When a nurse comes to take Elijah to the lab for his blood test, Oliver looks up with disappointment. "We'll finish the game later," Elijah promises. "I need to remember where all the pieces are." "You've got me in a tricky position." Oliver smiles, a hint of mischief in his eyes. That was the plan. As Elijah follows the nurse out, he hears Oliver call after him. "Bring your laptop next time. I want to show you the robot design I've been working on." "I will," Elijah promises, his heart swelling with a strange new emotion he's never experienced before, a fierce, protective love that would trade all his billions for this child's health in an instant. In the hallway, Vivian catches up to him. "He likes you," she says, as if this surprises her. "He's incredible, Vivian. So smart, so brave. You've done an amazing job with him." She accepts the compliment with a small nod. "It hasn't been easy, especially the last year." "Tell me about him," Elijah says as they walk. "Everything I've missed." Vivian hesitates, then begins slowly. "He was born on April 12th, 8 pounds, 2 ounces. He didn't cry, just looked around the delivery room like he was cataloging everything." A small smile touches her lips at the memory. "He walked early, talked early, always curious, always figuring things out. Like his mother," Elijah says softly. Vivian glances at him, then continues. "He was perfectly healthy until last year. Then the bruises started appearing. He was tired all the time," the diagnosis was.
Her voice catches. "It was the worst day of my life."
Elijah resists the urge to reach for her hand. "I should have been there, for both of you." "Yes, you should have," she agrees, but without the earlier bite in her tone. "But you're here now. That counts for something." The blood draw is quick and efficient. As the technician labels the vials, Elijah asks, "Is there any way to expedite these results?" Money is no object. The technician glances at Vivian, who sighs. "Elijah, throwing money at this won't—" "Actually," the technician interrupts, "there is a private lab that can process these in 48 hours. It's not covered by insurance, though." "I don't care about the cost," Elijah says immediately. "Whatever it takes." Vivian doesn't protest this time. For Oliver, she'll accept help from any source, even the man who broke her heart. The next 2 days establish a new routine. Elijah arrives at the hospital each morning with breakfast. For Vivian, real coffee from the artisanal cafe down the street. Fresh pastries, fruit that doesn't come from the hospital cafeteria. They finish the chess game. Oliver wins, to his delight. And Elijah brings his laptop as promised. Oliver shows him the robot designs he's created using a simple 3D modeling program, surprisingly sophisticated concepts for a 10-year-old. "This one could deliver medications to patients automatically," he explains, pointing to a sleek design on the screen. "And this one could take vital signs without waking kids up." "These are impressive," Elijah says, genuinely amazed. "Have you shown these to your doctors?" Oliver shrugs. "They're just ideas, kid stuff." "No," Elijah shakes his head. "These are innovations. I have a team of engineers who would be impressed by these concepts." Oliver's eyes widen. "Really? Really? In fact," Elijah pauses, an idea forming. "What would you think about having some of my engineers look at these? Maybe help you refine them?" "That would be awesome," Oliver exclaims, then catches himself, glancing at his mother. "If Mom says it's okay." Vivian, who has been listening quietly, nods. "I think that sounds wonderful." The smile that lights up Oliver's face is worth more than any business deal Elijah has ever closed. On the morning the test results are due, Elijah arrives at the hospital to find Vivian pacing the corridor outside Oliver's room. "What's wrong?" he asks immediately. "Is Oliver okay?" "He spiked a fever overnight," she says, her voice tight with worry. "Dr. Winters says it's an infection. They've started him on antibiotics, but his immune system is so compromised." Without thinking, Elijah pulls her into his arms. To his surprise, she doesn't resist, leaning into him briefly before pulling away. "The results?" she asks. Should be here any minute. The lab promised them by 10 a.m. They wait together in tense silence. When Dr. Winters approaches, his expression gives nothing away. "We have the results," he says, gesturing for them to follow him to a small consultation room. The room is impersonal beige walls, generic artwork, uncomfortable chairs. Elijah and Vivian sit side by side, unconsciously reaching for each other's hands as Dr. Winters opens the file. "Mr. Grant," he begins, "you are a 100% match for Oliver." The words hang in the air for a moment before their meaning registers. Vivian gasps, her hand tightening around Elijah's. "A perfect match?" she whispers. "How is that possible? I thought parents were usually only half matches." "It's uncommon but not unheard of," Dr. Winters explains. "This is the best possible news for Oliver." "What happens now?" Elijah asks, his voice steady despite the emotions churning inside him. "We need to get Oliver's infection under control first. Then we can schedule the transplant. The procedure itself is relatively straightforward for the donor, similar to a blood donation, but longer. For Oliver, it's more complex. He'll need chemotherapy to prepare his body, which has risks of its own. But his chances? Vivian presses. With a perfect match? Dr. Winters smiles. The first truly optimistic expression they've seen from him. With a perfect match, his chances improve dramatically. I'd say we're looking at a 70–80% success rate. Vivian's composure finally breaks. Tears stream down her face as she absorbs the news. "Thank you," she whispers, and Elijah knows she's not speaking to the doctor. "When can I tell him?" she asks Dr. Winters. "Let's wait until his fever breaks. We don't want to get his hopes up and then have to delay because of the infection." They agree, and Dr. Winters leaves them alone in the consultation room. For a moment, neither speaks. Then Vivian turns to Elijah, her eyes still shining with tears. "Thank you," she says again. "Whatever else has happened between us, thank you for this." "Don't thank me," Elijah replies softly. "This isn't charity or redemption. He's my son, too." The simple acknowledgement the first time he's stated it so plainly hangs between them, a bridge across the chasm of years. There's a moment when the universe aligns in ways that seem impossible. Like cosmic forces conspired to create a perfect match when the odds were stacked against it. That moment when science and miracle blur together. If you've ever wished you could undo a goodbye, this moment is for you. Like this video if your heart hurts right now. Comment. Too late? If you've ever wondered if forgiveness still exists, and if you're still watching but not subscribed, ask yourself, why keep running from the stories that make you feel alive? Subscribe, and don't miss the next chapter of a love trying to rebuild itself. Oliver's infection proves stubborn. For 3 days, his fever fluctuates, occasionally dropping enough to give them hope before spiking again. Elijah cancels a major product launch, instructing his executive team to proceed without him. His place is here, even if all he can do is sit beside Oliver's bed while the boy drifts in and out of sleep. On the 4th day, the fever finally breaks. Oliver wakes clear-eyed for the first time in days. His first question, a weak but determined, did the test results come back? Vivian, who has barely left his side, smiles through tears. "Yes, sweetheart. Your father is a perfect match." Oliver's eyes find Elijah, who sits in the corner of the room. "A perfect match?" he repeats. "That's statistically improbable." Elijah laughs, relief making him almost giddy. "Leave it to you to focus on the statistics. When can we do the transplant?" Oliver asks, already thinking ahead. "Dr. Winters wants to make sure the infection is completely gone," Vivian explains. "Maybe another week." Oliver nods, accepting this with the patience of a child who has learned that healing can't be rushed. "Will it hurt?" he asks Elijah. "Giving the bone marrow?" "I don't care if it does," Elijah answers honestly. "It's worth it." Oliver studies him with those penetrating eyes. "Why did you come back now, after all this time?" The question catches Elijah off guard. He glances at Vivian, who nods slightly, giving him permission to answer. "I didn't know about you," Elijah says gently. "I saw the article about your mom selling her wedding dress collection, and I recognized her. When I realized you were my son, I knew I had to find you." "But why?" Oliver persists. You have a company to run, important meetings and stuff. None of that matters compared to you, Elijah says simply. Oliver considers this, his expression thoughtful. Mom always said you left because your work was more important than family. Vivian winces. Oliver, that's not exactly... It's okay, Elijah interrupts. She was right. He moves closer to Oliver's bed, choosing his words carefully. 10 years ago, I thought success meant building the biggest company, having the most money, seeing my name on buildings. I was wrong. None of that means anything if you don't have people to share it with. People like me and Mom? Oliver asks. Exactly like you and your mom. Oliver nods, seemingly satisfied with this answer. So you're staying, even after the transplant? I'm staying, Elijah confirms. For as long as you and your mom want me around. Oliver's gaze shifts to his mother, a silent question in his eyes. Vivian's expression softens. We're taking things one day at a time, she says diplomatically. But your father is welcome to be part of your life. It's not forgiveness. Not yet. But it's a beginning. The week passes in a blur of medical preparations. Oliver undergoes tests to ensure the infection is truly gone. Elijah submits to more detailed medical screenings to confirm his suitability as a donor. And through it all, a fragile new dynamic forms between the three of them. Oliver, when feeling well enough, peppers Elijah with questions about his company, his inventions, his life. Elijah answers everything honestly, editing only the most adult details. Vivian observes these exchanges with cautious optimism, occasionally adding her own memories of the young, hungry entrepreneur she once loved. Your father lived on ramen noodles for a year while developing his first app, she tells Oliver one afternoon. He used to fall asleep at his computer so often that I bought him a special pillow to prevent keyboard marks on his face. Elijah laughs, surprised she remembers such details. Did you know each other in college? Oliver asks, always hungry for pieces of his own origin story. Vivian and Elijah exchange a glance, silently negotiating who will answer. We met at a tech conference, Vivian finally says. I was presenting my thesis on sustainable fashion design. Your father was there, pitching his first startup. She was the most brilliant person in the room, Elijah adds softly. Everyone else was talking about apps and algorithms, and she was talking about changing the world through ethical fashion. You interrupted my presentation, Vivian reminds him, a hint of their old rapport emerging. I asked an insightful question, Elijah corrects with a smile. You challenged my entire premise, and you demolished my argument so thoroughly that I had to ask you to dinner just to salvage my ego. They both laugh, momentarily forgetting the hospital room, the years of separation, the child watching them with keen interest. You loved each other, Oliver observes, his tone clinical but his eyes hopeful. The laughter fades. Vivian busies herself adjusting Oliver's blankets, avoiding the question. Yes, Elijah answers simply. We did. The day before the scheduled transplant, Elijah arrives at the hospital to find Oliver's room empty. Panic seizes him until a nurse explains that Oliver is having his final pre-procedure scans and will return shortly. Where's Vivian? He asks. Miss Hale went to the chapel, the nurse replies. 5th floor, end of the hall. Elijah finds her there, sitting alone in the small, quiet space. Sunlight filters through a stained glass window, casting colorful patterns across her bowed head. He hesitates in the doorway, feeling like an intruder on a private moment. As if sensing his presence, Vivian looks up. Her eyes are red-rimmed, but dry. I'm not religious, she says by way of greeting. But sometimes I need a quiet place to think. Elijah sits beside her, leaving space between them. Are you worried about tomorrow? Terrified, she admits. The chemo they've given him to prepare his body. It's brutal, Elijah. It destroys everything, good cells and bad. Right now, he has essentially no immune system. If the transplant doesn't work, she doesn't finish the sentence. She doesn't need to. It will work, Elijah says with more confidence than he feels. Oliver is strong and stubborn. He smiles slightly, like his mother. Vivian's laugh is watery and brilliant like his father. She turns to face him fully. Thank you. Not just for the bone marrow, but for being here. For showing up for him the way you have. I should have been here all along, Elijah says, regret heavy in his voice. Yes, Vivian agrees. You should have. She pauses, then adds softly, but you're here now. That's what matters to Oliver. And to you? Elijah asks, the question escaping before he can stop it. Vivian looks away, her profile illuminated by the colored light. I don't know yet, she answers honestly. 10 years is a long time, Elijah. I built a life without you. I had to. I know, he says. And I'm not asking for forgiveness or a second chance. I just want you to know that I'm not the same man who left. Seeing Oliver, seeing you again, it's changed everything. Vivian studies him, searching for sincerity or manipulation. We should get back, she says finally. Oliver will be returning from his scans. They walk side by side through the hospital corridors, not touching but somehow closer than they've been in a decade. Oliver is already back in his room when they arrive, looking pale but determined. There you are, he says. The nurse said you disappeared. Just stretching our legs, Vivian explains, moving to his bedside. How were the scans? Boring, Oliver shrugs. But Dr. Winters says everything looks good for tomorrow. He turns to Elijah. Are you nervous? A little, Elijah admits, but mostly excited. Tomorrow is the first day of your recovery. Oliver nods, then asks hesitantly, Can I see it? Where they'll take the bone marrow from? Elijah blinks, surprised by the request. It's just my hip, he explains. There's nothing to see yet. I know, Oliver says. But I want to understand the whole process. The doctors explain it, but they use kid words, like I can't handle the real information. Vivian and Elijah exchange a glance, both recognizing the child's need for control in a situation where he has so little. They'll use a special needle to extract the bone marrow from my pelvic bone, Elijah explains, turning to show Oliver the approximate location on his hip. I'll be under anesthesia, so I won't feel anything. They'll collect about 1 liter of marrow, which contains the stem cells you need. And then they put it in me, through my central line, Oliver continues, pointing to the catheter in his chest. And if everything works, your cells will start making new, healthy blood cells in my body. Exactly, Elijah confirms. My cells become your cells. Oliver considers this, his expression thoughtful. So I'll be part you, literally. You already are, Elijah says gently. But yes, even more so. Will I start liking classical music? Oliver asks with a hint of mischief. Mom says you used to play Bach all the time, and it drove her crazy. Elijah laughs, glancing at Vivian, who smiles despite herself. I don't think bone marrow transplants work quite that way. But if you suddenly develop a taste for Bach, we'll know why. The levity is a welcome break from the tension of the coming procedure. They spend the evening playing cards, watching a movie on Oliver's tablet, and carefully avoiding discussion of what-ifs. When visiting hours end, Elijah prepares to leave for his hotel. You'll be here early, right? Oliver asks, a rare hint of childlike vulnerability in his voice. Before they take me to the operating room? I'll be here at dawn, Elijah promises. Wild horses couldn't keep me away. As he turns to go, Oliver calls after him. Dad? The word still sends a jolt through Elijah's heart. Yes, thank you for saving me. Elijah returns to the bedside, gently resting his hand on Oliver's thin shoulder. You've got it backwards, kid. You're the one saving me. The transplant day dawns clear and cold. Elijah arrives at the hospital as promised, just as the first light breaks over the city skyline. Vivian is already in Oliver's room, helping him change into a hospital gown. The big day, Elijah says with forced cheerfulness. How are you feeling, champ? Ready, Oliver says, though his voice trembles slightly. Dr. Winters says I'll be asleep for the whole thing, and when I wake up, your cells will already be working inside me. That's right, Elijah confirms. And I'll be right here when you wake up. A nurse enters with a clipboard.
It's time for pre-op medications, Oliver. And, Mr. Grant, they're ready for you in donor prep.
Reality crashes in. This is happening now. Vivian leans down to embrace Oliver, whispering something in his ear that makes him smile. Then it's Elijah's turn. He approaches the bed, suddenly unsure. What do you say to a child you've known for barely 2 weeks, who carries your DNA, who might be receiving the gift of life from you, or might not survive despite it? Oliver solves the dilemma by reaching up for a hug. Elijah enfolds him carefully, mindful of the IV lines and monitors. See you on the other side, Oliver whispers. Count on it, Elijah replies, his voice rough with emotion. In the donor prep area, Elijah changes into a hospital gown, answers final health questions, and signs consent forms. The anesthesiologist explains the procedure again, how he'll be sedated, how the marrow will be extracted, what to expect afterward. You'll be sore for a few days, she concludes. But most donors are back to normal activities within a week. Elijah nods, barely listening. His thoughts are with Oliver, who is undergoing his own preparations in another part of the hospital. Mr. Grant? A nurse appears at his side. Miss Hale is asking for you before you go under. Vivian waits in the hallway, her arms wrapped around herself despite the hospital's warmth. I just wanted to say. She begins, then stops, her composure cracking. Thank you for doing this, for being here, for trying. There's nowhere else I'd rather be, Elijah says honestly. Vivian steps forward, closing the distance between them. For a moment, she simply looks at him, and in her eyes, he sees a decade of hurt, hope, and possibility. Then, she kisses him soft, brief, and tinged with salt from the tears on her cheeks. That's for luck, she whispers. For both of you. Before Elijah can respond, she turns and walks quickly back toward Oliver's room, leaving him standing in the corridor with the ghost of her touch on his lips. The anesthesia pulls Elijah under with surprising swiftness. One moment he's counting backward from 10. The next he's waking in recovery, groggy and disoriented. A dull ache throbs in his hip, but it's distant, manageable. Mr. Grant? A recovery nurse leans into his field of vision. The procedure went perfectly. We collected an excellent sample. Oliver received the transplant about 20 minutes ago. Is he okay? Elijah's voice comes out rough. He's in recovery as well. You'll both be moved to rooms shortly, and you can see him once you're stable. The hours that follow blur together. Elijah is wheeled to a private room, given pain medication, instructed on post-procedure care. But all he can think about is Oliver, whether the boy is awake, whether he's scared, whether Vivian is with him. Finally, as evening approaches, a nurse appears with a wheelchair. Someone's been asking for you, she says with a knowing smile. Think you're up for a short trip down the hall? Oliver's room is quieter than usual. The machine's beeping softer now. The boy lies in bed, pale but awake. Vivian beside him holding his hand. Dad, Oliver says when he sees Elijah being wheeled in. His voice is weak but his eyes are bright. We did it. We did, Elijah agrees, positioning his wheelchair beside the bed. How are you feeling? Tired. Weird. Oliver manages a small smile. But Dr. Winter says your cells are already starting to work. He says I have billionaire blood now. Elijah laughs, then winces as the movement pulls at his hip. Does that mean you're going to start demanding coffee from fancy cafes? Maybe, Oliver says with a hint of his usual spirit. Then, more seriously, thank you. For real. Thank you, Elijah counters, for giving me a second chance. Vivian watches the exchange, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. When Elijah meets her gaze, she mouths 2 words, thank you. The days that follow are a study in patience and hope. Oliver's body begins the slow work of accepting Elijah's cells, building a new immune system from the ground up. Elijah recovers from the donation procedure, the soreness in his hip fading but never quite disappearing. a reminder he comes to cherish of the day he truly became Oliver's father. Some people spend their whole lives trying to change, only to discover transformation happens when we stop running from truth. If you've ever walked away from love, only to find it waiting when you finally came back, you understand what happens next. Like, if you believe in second chances, comment, choose love, if you'd risk everything for family. And if you're still here watching but haven't subscribed yet, you're part of this story now. Don't just witness healing. Be part of it. Subscribe to Mr. Sterling's Secrets of Love and never miss a moment. 2 weeks post-transplant. Oliver's counts begin to rise. White blood cells, red blood cells, platelets all climbing steadily as Elijah's stem cells establish themselves in Oliver's bone marrow. The medical team is cautiously optimistic. "We're not out of the woods yet, doctor." Winters cautions. "The first 100 days are critical. We'll be watching carefully for signs of rejection or graft versus host disease. But for the first time since this journey began, hope feels less like a fragile thing and more like something solid to stand on." The hospital becomes their temporary home. Elijah takes up residence in the room next to Oliver's, working remotely when necessary, but spending most of his time with his son. They finish chess games and start new ones. Oliver shows Elijah his robot designs, now being refined with input from Grant Tech's engineering team. They watch movies, discuss physics and philosophy, and slowly build a relationship that should have begun 10 years ago. Vivian is there through it all, a constant presence. The walls between her and Elijah slowly begin to crumble, not in grand gestures, but in small moments. A shared coffee in the cafeteria. A hand held during a tense medical consultation. Conversations that stretch late into the night while Oliver sleeps, filling in the years they missed. "I was so angry at you," she admits one night, her voice barely above a whisper. "For so long, it felt like the only way to protect Oliver and myself." "You had every right to be," Elijah says. "But anger is exhausting," she continues. "And watching you with him, I see the man I fell in love with. Older, maybe wiser, but still him." "I'm not asking you to forgive me," Elijah says carefully, "or to forget what I did." "I know," Vivian replies. "But maybe forgiveness isn't about forgetting. Maybe it's about deciding that who you are now matters more than who you were then." The conversation hangs between them, full of possibility and caution in equal measure. On day 30 post-transplant, Oliver is finally discharged from the hospital. It's not freedom he'll need to return for frequent checkups and remain in isolation to protect his fragile new immune system, but it's progress. Elijah has already prepared for this. He's purchased a house in Brooklyn, close to Vivian's boutique and the hospital. It has a clean room for Oliver, separate quarters for Vivian if she wants them, and a guest wing that Elijah occupies, giving them space while remaining close. "You didn't have to do this," Vivian says as they tour the house for the first time. "Yes, I did," Elijah counters. "You've carried this alone for 10 years. Let me help carry it now." The first weeks in the house are an adjustment. Oliver is still weak, sleeping more than he's awake. Vivian is cautiously vigilant, monitoring his temperature, ensuring he takes his anti-rejection medications, enforcing the strict hygiene protocols that protect his vulnerable immune system. Elijah learns to be part of this rhythm, making meals that accommodate Oliver's dietary restrictions, coordinating with the medical team, working from home, to be available whenever needed. It's nothing like running a billion-dollar company, and yet it feels more important than any deal he's ever closed. One evening, as Elijah prepares dinner, Vivian joins him in the kitchen. Oliver is napping upstairs, monitored by the baby camera they've repurposed for medical necessity. "He's gaining weight," she observes, leaning against the counter. "Did you notice? His face looks fuller." "I noticed," Elijah says, unable to hide his smile. "Dr. Winters said it's a good sign. His body is accepting the transplant." Vivian nods, but her expression is troubled. "What happens after the 100 days?" she asks quietly. "When Oliver is stronger? When the crisis is over?" Elijah sets down the knife he's been using to chop vegetables. "What do you mean?" "I mean," she struggles for words. You have a life, Elijah. A company. You can't stay here forever playing house. Why not? He challenges. I've spent 10 years building an empire. Maybe it's time I built a family instead. It's not that simple, Vivian protests. You don't just walk away from a billion-dollar company. I'm not walking away. I'm delegating. My executive team is more than capable of running daily operations. He moves closer to her. Vivian, I know I don't deserve a second chance with you, but I'm not asking for that not yet. I'm asking for the chance to be Oliver's father, to be here, consistently, for whatever he needs. And what about what you need? She asks. How long before you resent being tied down the way you did before? The question cuts deep because it's fair. I was 25 then, Elijah says quietly. Scared and selfish and convinced that success meant sacrifice. I'm 35 now. I've had success, Vivian, and I've learned it's hollow without people to share it with. He pauses. You taught me that. Oliver taught me that. Vivian's eyes search his face. I want to believe you. Then let me prove it, he says simply. Day by day, week by week. No grand gestures. No promises I can't keep. Just showing up. Consistently. For as long as you'll let me. Before she can respond, they hear Oliver's voice through the monitor. Mom? Dad? I'm hungry. The word dad still sends a thrill through Elijah every time. He and Vivian exchange a smile, tentative but real, before heading upstairs together. Day 60 post-transplant brings the best news yet. Oliver's bone marrow biopsy shows complete engraftment. Elijah's cells have not only taken root but are thriving, producing healthy blood cells at a normal rate. I don't want to say miracle, Dr. Winters says with a broad smile, but this is about as close as medicine gets. Oliver's recovery is extraordinary. Oliver, stronger now and regaining his energy, pumps his fist. Does this mean I can go outside soon? Slow down, Dr. Winters laughs. We still need to be cautious. But yes, in a few weeks, we can start gradually reintroducing normal activities. That night, they celebrate with Oliver's favorite meal, carefully prepared to meet his dietary needs, but special nonetheless. Oliver talks excitedly about going back to school, seeing his friends, continuing his robotics projects. And I want to visit your office, he tells Elijah. See where all the Grant Tech magic happens. Deal, Elijah agrees, as soon as Dr. Winters gives the okay. After Oliver goes to bed, Elijah and Vivian sit together on the back porch, wrapped in blankets against the autumn chill. He's going to be okay, Vivian says, as if saying it aloud makes it real. He is. Elijah confirms. He's remarkable. He gets that from you, Vivian says softly. He gets it from both of us, Elijah corrects. They sit in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge in the city sky. Then Vivian speaks again. I'm scared, she admits, of what comes next. We've been in crisis mode for so long. What happens when life goes back to normal? We figure it out together, Elijah says. If you'll let me. Vivian turns to face him. I don't know what together looks like for us anymore. We're not the same people we were. No, Elijah agrees. We're better. Scarred, maybe, but stronger. You really believe we could work? After everything? I believe in second chances, Elijah says. I believe in forgiveness and growth and the possibility that people can change. Most of all, I believe in what I see when you look at me. Not just anger anymore, but hope. Vivian's breath catches. You always knew what to say. Not always, Elijah admits with a wry smile. 10 years ago, I said all the wrong things, but I'm trying to get it right now. She leans against him, and he wraps his arm around her shoulders. They stay that way until the stars are bright overhead, not talking, just being together in a way they haven't been in a decade. The months that follow bring steady progress. Oliver's strength returns gradually but surely. By day 90, he's well enough to start homebound tutoring. By day 100, he's cleared to venture outside with a mask and careful precautions. The first place he wants to go is his mother's boutique. Forever After Bridal has struggled during Vivian's absence, kept afloat by her assistant, but lacking Vivian's creative vision and personal touch. When they arrive, Oliver wanders through the nearly empty shop with wide eyes. "This was full of dresses," he says. "I remember, before I got sick." "It will be again," Vivian promises, though her voice lacks conviction. Elijah has been waiting for this moment. "Actually," he says carefully, "I have a proposal. A business proposal," he clarifies when Vivian's eyes narrow. "Go on," she says warily. "Let me invest in Forever After, not as charity, but as a genuine business investment. Your designs are brilliant, Vivian. They always were. With the right backing, you could expand, maybe even franchise." "I don't want your charity," Vivian says immediately. "It's not charity. It's business. I've reviewed your books, with your permission," he adds quickly, seeing her expression. The boutique was profitable before Oliver got sick. With capital investment and proper marketing, it could be hugely successful. Vivian looks around her shop, seeing both what it was and what it could be. "Why?" she asks finally. "Why invest in a small bridal boutique when you have tech companies and real estate deals?" "Because it's yours," Elijah says simply. "Because you built this with your own hands and your own vision. Because Oliver should see his mother's dreams succeed the way you've helped mine." Oliver, listening intently, pipes up. "We could use the help." Vivian laughs, a real laugh this time. "Ganging up on me, are you? Is it working?" Oliver asks with a grin. "Maybe," Vivian admits. "But we do this as equal partners, Elijah. Contract, terms, everything official. I wouldn't have it any other way." Elijah agrees, extending his hand. "Partners?" Vivian shakes it, and in that moment, another bridge is built, this one made of trust and mutual respect. The months that followed Oliver's recovery transformed more than just his health. As his body grew stronger, so did the fragile bonds between his parents. 6 months after his discharge, Elijah and Vivian stood before a Brooklyn courthouse judge and quietly married, with Oliver as their witness. A small, intimate ceremony that felt more real than any elaborate wedding could have been. When Vivian discovered she was pregnant 3 months later, it felt like the universe offering them another chance to get things right from the beginning. 7 months later, on a crisp autumn morning, Sophia Grace Grant entered the world a healthy, vocal baby girl with her father's amber eyes and her mother's determination. Oliver, now 12 and in remission, held his baby sister with careful reverence. "She's perfect," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "I have a sister." Elijah watched his family, his wife, his son, his daughter, and felt a completeness he'd never known existed. This was what success really meant. Not buildings with his name on them or Forbes profiles, but this moment, this love, this second chance he'd almost lost forever. 2 years after Sophia's arrival, the Grant family expanded once more. Ethan Michael Grant entered the world during a snowy January morning, completing their family with his father's analytical mind paired with his mother's artistic sensibility. Where Oliver approached problems with clinical precision and Sophia with creative enthusiasm, Ethan observed the world with quiet thoughtfulness, processing everything before acting. "We have 3 kids," Vivian said one night, holding newborn Ethan while watching Oliver help Sophia with her building blocks. "How did we get here?" "Slowly," Elijah replied, wrapping his arms around her. "One day at a time, just like we promised." Forever After Bridal flourished under their partnership. Vivian's designs gained recognition, featured in bridal magazines and worn by brides across the country. The original Brooklyn location expanded, and 2 new boutiques opened, one in Manhattan, one in Boston. Oliver, fully recovered and thriving, spent his free time developing medical robotics, several of his designs now in prototype phase with Grant Tech's healthcare division. Though they had quietly married at the Brooklyn courthouse shortly after Oliver's recovery, a small ceremony with just Oliver present, Elijah and Vivian wanted to celebrate their renewed commitment with a larger ceremony once their family was complete. The wedding celebration, when it finally happened 3 years later with all 3 children present, was not about new beginnings, but about honoring a journey completed and continuing. They chose a garden venue in Brooklyn, intimate and beautiful, surrounded by close friends and family. Oliver, now 17 and healthy, served as best man. Sophia, 5 years old with wildflowers in her hair, was Flower Girl. 3-year-old Ethan carried the rings, his serious little face concentrated on his important task. As Vivian walked down the aisle, this time wearing a dress she'd designed herself, Elijah's eyes filled with tears. This was the moment they should have had 10 years ago, but somehow, having weathered storms and rebuilding from ashes, it meant so much more. "I thought I'd lost you forever," Elijah whispered as they stood before the officiant. "You almost did," Vivian whispered back. "But here we are." Their vows were simple but profound. Promises to continue showing up, to choose each other daily, to build a life based not on grand gestures, but on steady, consistent love. When they kissed, their children cheered, and Elijah understood that this messy, beautiful, hard-won family was the greatest achievement of his life. 10 years passed in a blur of milestones. Oliver's remission became official at the 5-year mark. He graduated high school as valedictorian, his medical robot prototype already attracting attention from leading healthcare companies. MIT welcomed him with a full scholarship, and the boy who once fought for his life now fought to save others through innovation. Sophia grew into a spirited 15-year-old with her mother's creativity and her father's determination. She interned at Forever After Bridal, already designing dresses that made brides cry with joy. Her sketches showed a talent that surpassed even her mother's. Ethan, now 13, rounded out their family with his quiet brilliance. He excelled in mathematics and music, composing pieces that blended classical training with modern innovation, a perfect metaphor for their family itself. On Oliver's 20th birthday, as the family gathered to celebrate at the Brooklyn house that had become their home, Elijah watched his son, tall, healthy, brilliant, cut his birthday cake surrounded by the people who loved him. "Make a wish," Sophia urged. Oliver closed his eyes, blew out the candles, then smiled. "I don't need to wish for anything. I already have everything I want." Vivian caught Elijah's eye across the room, and in that glance, they shared a private conversation. They'd built this, not just the family, but the love, trust, and forgiveness that held it together. It hadn't been easy. There had been difficult conversations, setbacks, moments when the past threatened to derail the future. But they'd chosen each other, again and again, day after day. 5 years later, Oliver's doctoral dissertation day arrived. At 25, Oliver stood tall and confident at the front of MIT's auditorium, defending his dissertation on AI-assisted robotic surgery systems. His prototype had already been adopted by 3 major hospitals, saving countless lives. As he answered questions from the panel of professors, Elijah squeezed Vivian's hand. Their son, the boy who'd nearly died, who'd fought so hard for every day, was now Dr. Oliver Grant, about to revolutionize medicine. After the successful defense, the family gathered for a private celebration. Oliver raised his glass for a toast. "To my parents," he said, his voice strong and steady. "Mom, you taught me that strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting back up every time. You showed me what unconditional love looks like, even when the world seemed impossible." Vivian wiped tears from her eyes as Oliver continued. "And Dad," Oliver paused, his voice catching. "You taught me that it's never too late to become the person you're meant to be. You showed up when it mattered most, and you never stopped showing up. The cells you gave me didn't just save my life, they gave me a future." Elijah couldn't speak, overcome with emotion. Oliver crossed the room and embraced him. "Thank you," Oliver whispered, "for everything. For the bone marrow, yes, but more than that, for becoming the father I needed, for proving that people can change, that second chances are real." As Elijah held his son, he thought back to that midnight in his penthouse office when he'd first seen Oliver's face on a computer screen. He'd had everything. Then money, power, success, but he'd had nothing that mattered. Now, surrounded by his family in this moment of celebration, he finally understood what it meant to be truly wealthy. The years continued to unfold, birthdays and graduations, Thanksgivings and ordinary Tuesdays, laughter and occasional tears. Sophia opened her own boutique at 22. Her designs featured in Vogue, Ethan became a concert pianist and mathematics professor, bridging art and science the way his family had bridged past and present. Oliver married a brilliant surgeon he'd met during his residency. At the wedding, he danced with both his parents, thanking them for showing him what love looks like when it's tested and chooses to endure. On their 25th wedding anniversary, Elijah and Vivian returned to the hospital where Oliver had been treated, now named the Grant Family Pediatric Center, funded by their foundation. They walked through the halls where they'd spent so many terrified nights, where their family had been forged in crisis and hope. "We did it," Vivian said softly, standing in what had been Oliver's room. "We really did it." "You did it," Elijah corrected. "For 10 years, you did it alone." "And for 25 years, we've done it together," Vivian replied, taking his hand. "That's what matters." They stood together, remembering the scared woman who'd sold her wedding dress, the absent father who'd finally come home, and the brave boy who'd brought them back together. "Do you ever regret it?" Elijah asked quietly. "Giving me a second chance?" Vivian turned to him, cupping his face in her hands. "Every day," she said, and his heart stopped. Then she smiled. "I regret that we wasted 10 years, but I don't regret a single day since you came back. You proved that people can change, Elijah. You proved that love can rebuild what pride destroyed." Elijah kissed her, just as he had in this hospital decades ago when fear and hope were intertwined. "I love you," he whispered. "Then, now, always." "Then, now, always," she echoed. And, in that moment, surrounded by memories of pain transformed into purpose, they understood that some stories aren't about perfect beginnings. They're about refusing to let imperfect middles define the ending. The Grant family story wasn't just about a billionaire who came back, or a boy who survived, or a mother who forgave. It was about all of them choosing each other, day after day, building something beautiful from broken pieces. It was about second chances being real, if you're brave enough to take them. It was about coming home. If you've ever wondered whether it's too late to make things right, whether love can truly survive years of absence and hurt, this story is your answer. Like this video if you believe in redemption. Comment, "Never too late," if someone you love deserves to hear you're sorry. Share this story with anyone who needs to know that broken things can be made beautiful again. And if you've watched this entire journey but haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Don't just consume stories of hope. Become part of a community that believes in them. Subscribe to Mr. Sterling's Secrets of Love, hit that notification bell, and never miss a story that reminds you what really matters. Because the greatest wealth isn't measured in dollars, it's measured in the people who wait for you to come home, and the courage to finally walk through that door.